Well, we don't have any music.
All right. And welcome, Hoosier fans, to another episode of Doing the Work, the first show on the Back Home Network covering IU women's basketball. This is our 167th episode recorded on the evening of Tuesday, August 12th, 2025. And I'm your host, Kathy Amos, joined by my co host, Jeff Marlow. And today we're talking with our special guest, Austin Rinder. So, for those of you who are not sure, Austin Rinder is also part of the Back Home Network, along with Jeff and myself. He has his own separate podcast that's dedicated to covering Big Ten women's basketball as a whole, where Jeff and I are concentrating on just Indiana. Austin is covering the entire conference. So make sure you're subscribing to his podcast as well. It's really a great cover over there as well and give you yet another perspective for women's basketball. Additionally, Austin does the play-by-play on the radio for the Indiana women's team. So and baseball, right? So I think we're really happy to have you here with us tonight, Austin.
Yeah,
so
thanks for
but before
having
we
me,
get
guys.
into the yeah, absolutely, always love having you back. All right, well, before we get into, I guess, the meat of our program, clearly I'm rusty at this, been off for 5 weeks. So we're going to start with our banner moments. So our banner moments tonight for me is actually going to happen later tonight, or maybe it has started already, where Grace Berger is actually starting for the Dallas Wings. So that was really exciting to see Grace getting an opportunity here with Dallas and getting a starting position. So I'll look forward to seeing how that game goes for her. So that is for me what I picked for our banner moment. And as always, our banner moment is brought to you by Home Field Apparel, the presenting sponsor of the Back Home Network, which includes all kinds of, I'm not even going to list them anymore. We tried to used to list all the podcasts, but Galen Clavio has been a very busy man here this summer. And so just go out to YouTube and subscribe to the Back Home Network, and you will get all of the wonderful lineups of different podcasts at your disposal, ranging from Indiana men's basketball to obviously here. We talked about Austin's. We have the X's and Joe's, who is more high level of basketball. You've got also now all kinds of football content out there from Galen as well. So just all kinds of stuff for your listening pleasure. But remember to also support Home Field. Home Field has got a lot of fun stuff coming out. You can go to homefieldapparel.com. It's your first time, you can use our promo code HOME23 to get 15% off your entire first order. Again, that promo code is HOME23 for 15% off. Just keep in mind, if you haven't used that, it'd be a really great time to look at their football boxes that are out there. They have one for Indiana with all kinds of really cool stuff in there to get ready for the football season coming up around the corner. But again, that website is homefieldapparel.com. Wear one for the team. All right, so just a couple bits of news. I know, as I mentioned, it's been almost 5 weeks since Jeff and I have had an episode, but just a couple of pieces of news to share with you. The summer practices had started, and it seems to be they are complete. The last time we talked as well, we were talking about how the U19 team was out participating, and they ended up winning gold in the tournament that they were playing in. So that was really all I could find of news to share with everyone. So Jeff, without any further ado, let me kick it over to you for your Marlow's musings tonight, and then we'll finally let our special guest talk.
I really don't have anything to add in here. It's been a kind of a slow summer after the spring was so busy with the transfer portal. And I'm sure we're going to try and pick Austin's brain a little bit about the transfer portal. But other than that, Kathy, let's just get into the meat of the episode tonight, and let's get Austin brought in here.
All right, fantastic. So Austin, we don't have a whole lot. We'll just make this pretty free flowing and whatever you kind of feel like. But we do have a few questions that Jeff and I threw together, and then a couple from some folks on Substack. So we were wondering if there's anything you saw, if you were able to watch many of the summer practices, and any insights into how that went. So as we know, the team's slightly new this year, a little bit of turnover. So I'm pretty curious from, I think, a fan perspective on how practices are looking.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you and with the rest of the folks at home, very curious how this is going to look. I did not get a look at them in the summer window. There was a lot going on with a lot of these overseas events. Obviously, Coach Morin was coaching the U19s, and Zania was over there. Zania was over there as well. I think I'm just going to stick with calling her Z. That seems like what the team is calling her. Seems like the best way to go. All reports are, I mean, they're really excited about her. We can get into that, but yeah, so she was over there in Czechia doing the U19s. I think Kadliskova has been overseas, several others. Stoichin's been over there as well. I don't think that they had like a full team a whole lot during the summer. It was kind of a mix of people throughout. I've been traveling and kind of enjoying the summer, so I didn't have any times that lined up. So I know that first moment that things get going, I think it's September. I'm going to be lining up at the door like I had a GA ticket back in like 2022. I'll be ready. I'm excited. I want to see these ladies play and kind of see what they look like now that everybody's going to be back. There were some players that were still gone, some players that had traveled, as I said, and obviously Coach Morin being in and out. So I just kind of decided, you know what, I'm going to wait. I'm going to see him in September, October when this is a full product. And man, I'm excited. I'm with that. And look, I'll try and report back once we have eyes on them, because I'm with everyone else. There's kind of like, and we could talk about this. There's almost an excitement about the unknown, there's almost something about not knowing what's going to happen that is bringing me at least so much excitement for this year. I don't think you're not going to hear national pundits talk about Indiana. You're not going to hear a lot of even the Big Ten media talk about Indiana. My guess, when the polls come out in October, you're not going to see Indiana in the top 5. That's all they release for women's basketball. You won't see them in there. And in fact, right now I've got them in my poll at 12. And we can unpack that as we go. I want Hoosier fans to know that's not remember 12 teams made the NCAA tournament in the Big Ten last year.
True.
And
of an 18 team,
darn near 13. So I think that this is going to be kind of a year of the unknown, but I think a year of an exciting unknown, a totally new look. We've had this stretch with Mackenzie Holmes and Grace Berger and Chloe Moore McNeil and Sydney Parrish, and now they're all gone. And this is a whole new regime. And I think that brings, you can get into the dumps. Oh no, they're all gone. Who knows? I think it's exciting. It's a lot of young, hungry players. I didn't go to practice, but we are doing that newcomer series that's been posted on X. So I had a chance to chat with most of the newcomers, and it's a hungry bunch. It is a group that is really, really excited to get on the floor and play together.
Yeah, I've been watching all of those newcomer series, so appreciate you doing that. By the way, thank you. It's been really good, a lot of fun.
And we all need to learn who they are, right?
That's right. I know it. I'm both the men and the women's side. I keep saying when they post all these videos and other things and pictures, they need name tags underneath them, so you can start learning. Go ahead.
This is a season for the women where you truly need a program to know who the players are.
That's right.
The old-fashioned phrase. Austin, I want to take us back kind of toward the end of last season. I don't really want to per se rehash the season with you, and I don't expect you to give away because you're around the team much more than Kathy and I are. But I guess surprise isn't the word I want to use here. But were you shocked by the amount of kids who left? There were. I will be honest. Looking at from where I am in Rensselaer and watching on TV, there were several kids I was kind of like, nope, not shocked at all. I could see that happening as kind of the season was winding through. But were you shocked at like the volume of kids who left in the portal? Because this was a program that, a lot of us had touted the fact that Terry Morin's roster had stayed so stable in the portal era. So just kind of give us maybe your thoughts a little bit about the and not per se talking about the kids who left, but just about the volume of the kids who left. Did anybody really shock you when they left? And then maybe a little bit about how quickly they were able to fill back in with the portal.
Yeah, I think the timing was the part that was surprising. To be honest with you, individually, the first 4 or 5 dominoes that fell down didn't I wasn't. My jaw wasn't like totally on the ground. Like, I can't believe this.
Right.
Same.
Obviously, the Yarden Zone one was the one that got us all.
That's right.
When that popped up on my phone, there was a lot of shock with that one. I didn't see that one coming. It sounds like, from what we've seen, I think the Herald Times had a story out with Coach Moore, and Michael Neiselak, I think, did a piece with her, and they were surprised by it, kind of taken back by it when they met with her after the season. So that one was the surprising one. I think the timing of everything, though, Jeff, is what hurts, because let's say, what was it, 6 total players transferred? 7?
That's right. 6
6.
and 3 graduates.
Let's say 3 of those transferred last year. And then you're filling some of those spots last year, and then maybe you're retaining more coming into this season, and only 3 leave this year. Like, all 6 at once was what was the surprising. Right. Once one domino fell, they all went.
Good point.
And that was what, like, if it had just been spread out a little bit more, it might have been easier to swallow, easier to take. But to the second part of your question, Jeff, they acted quickly. Chloe Spreen was pretty much committed to Indiana like the minute that the portal opened. You kind of felt that one coming once she was in the portal, and you just kind of knew once she stepped on campus she was going to be here. There's a long list of players. Stotine from Arkansas was an early pickup for Indiana, and we'll talk into each one of them as we go. But that was a big pickup, and so the ball just kind of started rolling. Z commits from UCLA, and quickly those spots were starting to fill. They did act fast. They had to act fast because they lost 65-70% of their roster. Pretty much, they with graduating seniors, they lost about 90% of their production from last year. So this was a pretty good job, especially with some staff turnover too, for Indiana to put this together. I think, and we'll talk about all the players, I think there's a lot for Hoosier Nation to be excited about with these players that Terry Moore and her staff have brought in.
Yeah, we've been saying the same thing you touched on at the beginning there, Austin, where sometimes the unknown can be exciting. Jeff and I have talked about that a number of times as we've been kind of navigating through this, but maybe not all fans are like that. So how would you recommend to a fan right now to kind of set their expectations? You know, you mentioned that right now you have them picked to finish 12th in the Big Ten, which maybe to some might be a shock to their ears. And you talked about the lack of production, which we've been talking about in the offseason as well, or excuse me, not lack, but loss of production. So how do you recommend to fans when you talk to them with this brand new team to set their expectations at a reasonable level, whether not too high or too low for that matter?
That's a great question, because I think expectations tend to steer how much we enjoy or don't enjoy a specific season or even just individual game. First off, I promise you, when I go to practice and I start talking to the coaches, we're going to have Coach Moore on our other podcast, The Dribble Drive, at some point for the Indiana preview. And I'm sure once I'm done talking to her, I'm going to want to bump Indiana up several spots. And my rankings are very fluid right now. Every time we talk to a coach on the podcast, we just had the Oregon episode today with Kelly Graves. And they do such a good job of selling you on their team. And you're like, do I have Oregon too low right now? So I'm sure Indiana will, I don't know yet where they'll fully finish on my submitted ballot when that comes around, probably late September. But I do know they're going to be outside the top 7 or 8, at least to start the season. My expectation, or my advice to Hoosier Nation, is to just kind of go into it free of expectations. I think that's hard to do in today's society. We have to expect something from everyone. But I think I'm just going into this season with just kind of freedom of, let's see what we got. Let's see what this looks like. And the big thing for me is that I trust in Coach Morin. I think she's still one of the top 3-4 coaches in this league. And so you give her a team that this year is going to be made up of a lot of young, unproven talent. I think she can get the best out of this young, unproven talent and prove that they are worthy of being at a school like Indiana. And so I think that the expectation is that Terry Morin is going to put a team together. And Terry Morin is going to win 20 games and going to make the NCAA tournament and win a game. Like, that's just kind of been the MO of a Terry Morin coach team for the last 10 years. But I would say, as much as possible, go into this season with a freed up mind of just let's see what happens here. Because I truly think that this team, this is my prediction as of August. And again, I'm going to go to practice. I'll mold it as we go. My guess, with what I have seen, what I have watched highlight wise, what I have researched, this team's going to end up being similar, I think, to where last year's team finished. And I think it's going to be in a better, like, it's going to be more of an upward trajectory throughout the season, as opposed to last year's, like, wavy up and down. Maybe we got it. No, now we don't. 2 steps forward, 1 step back kind of thing. I think you're going to see a team that gradually improves as the season goes on. And maybe preseason, I have them at 11 or 12 in the rankings. But I could very well see them finishing 10-8 in the Big Ten, like last year's team, and finding their way into the 8 or the 9 seed and being an 8 or 9 seed of the NCAA tournament. And if that's your floor, you've set yourself up as a great program, where on a year where people aren't sure what you're going to do, you make the NCAA tournament, you win a game there. That's your floor. This is a young team that you hope you can retain that talent, and then you start building from there. There's always got to be a starting point. And not every year, unless you're a few select schools like South Carolina or Notre Dame, not every year is going to be like 22-23, or I guess, that was 22-23. Not every year is going to be like that. That team had to start from somewhere, and that started with a 10 seed in the Eugene regional. And then it made its way into what was probably going to be a 4 or 5 seed that next year when COVID hit. And then it was a bubble 4 seed, and then it's hosting. And so you got to start somewhere. Indiana was a 9 seed last year. I think they can do that again this year, and then you build from there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Austin, let's kind of talk about the kids coming in on the portal. Obviously Z is probably the biggest name, but what kind of give you an open-ended question here? Which one of the kids that are coming in the portal outside of Z, and maybe touch on her a little bit, but who maybe you're looking at, maybe you think could it be a surprise that we'd be like, hey, this kid's really going to surprise this fan base?
I think that just from watching her play, I think Phoenix Stotine is going to be a really good guard for this program. You think about all the great guards that Terry Morin has had in her system, the Tyra Busses, even the Jalen Penns. You find, obviously, more recently, Grace Berger, Chloe Moore McNeil, Sarah Scalia, the list goes on. And now Shea Chesky coming in and really showing off her game. I think Stotine is in a similar position to a Chesky, where she's going to be a really solid scorer for Indiana. Last year, kind of had to play the 2 a little bit more Arkansas than she would have liked. She said she grew up playing point guard, seeks more time at point guard. I think she and Journey Kiyaku will probably be kind of doing the fair share of the ball handling there, which I think will help with allowing Chesky to play off the ball. And so I think Stotine is somebody that brings in SEC experience, was thrown into the fire at Arkansas in her redshirt freshman season, 21 games last year, over 7 points a game. I think for her, she started to play better as the season went on. Had a 23-point game with 5 threes against Texas A&M, was watching some of her SEC tournament stuff, and she just looked really good down the stretch of the season. And I just feel like there's something there with her. She's going to be a redshirt sophomore. She's young, she's moldable, and from talking to her, she just seems like she's got that it factor of a next really good guard in this program. So I think she could be somebody that maybe she doesn't start from day one, but is somebody that can really impact the game for Indiana, kind of in a role like Sarah Scalia had her first year, where she came off the bench and was a spark plug for Indiana. I think that could be where Phoenix Stotine finds herself this year.
Nice. So kind of continuing along that, we've been talking a lot about the transfers then, but we have a couple freshmen coming in as well. Austin, what kind of contributions do you think we might or might not see from our freshmen that will be joining us?
I think that Terry's going to have to rely on these freshmen a little bit more than maybe she normally has for freshmen. And I'm curious to talk with her and her staff about that, because Yarden Garzon's kind of the outlier. Outside of her, freshmen don't play a whole lot in a Terry Morin system. Bendu Yaney, Jalen Penn were kind of thrust into it because they had to, and they had great freshman seasons. But even Mackenzie Holmes, Grace Berger, they were role players as freshmen. They weren't the immediate impacts. Chloe Moore McNeil didn't even play as a freshman. So I think these two are going to have to play more than most freshmen have. Specifically, I think Maya Makaleski, because of her scoring ability. She is. I just think she's going to be somebody who picks this up quickly. But from talking to people, Nevaeh Caffey is just as ready for this. I think Makaleski gets the headlines because she's an Indiana kid. So we've kind of watched her in her HSE career, surpassing the Sydney Parrish records and all that stuff. So I think people are familiar with the name. But Caffey is the Missouri, the Miss Show Me Basketball, averaged 17 points a game. But what I have heard is she is an excellent defender. And as we know, with Coach Moore and teams, if you can defend, you will get playing time. So if she's as good defensively as people have described her to me, I think that there's a real possibility she gets more minutes than maybe we expected coming into the year. Because again, Terry Morin will play you if you defend, and it sounds like she's going to be a great defender. Makaleski's, obviously, we know what she can do offensively, but one thing she did last year as a senior was work on her defense, led her team in deflections as a senior at HSE. That was something she really worked on. She has a lot of length. She's going to be a wing at, I think, 6'3", so very similar to a Garzon, very similar to a Parrish, somebody who's going to have some length on the wings that Indiana's going to need, because I think their guard room is going to be a little bit smaller this year. I think about like a Chesky and a Kiyaku, who comes over from Duquesne, even Lene Beaumont, not the tallest guard. So they're going to need some of that versatility from somebody like Makaleski, who can play on the wing, who can be a little bit bigger, can guard an opposing team's four. So I think both of them will have to be ready to go. I don't expect them to start. I don't expect them to be the Garzon, play every game, be relied upon to be in the rotation every game. But I do expect them, especially in the non-con, to feel them out, figure out what they can and can't contribute, and probably be viable options for Big Ten season.
Yep.
And I've kind of gone brain dead here, Austin, but have you had a chance to meet the new assistant coach, the recruiting coordinator? Because he seems to be doing a pretty good job in the first few months.
Yeah, I haven't gotten to meet Colton yet. That's one of the things I will look forward to once we get into practice in the fall. Just a guy that has a great pedigree, bringing a really good recruiting Rolodex from the South, which obviously we know there's a lot of talent down in that area where he has coached, where he has kind of planted his roots. So to bring some of that up to Indiana would be great. So I have not met him yet, but I think a really solid hire, some kind of youth added to the staff. I think some excitement from him added, and I think that's going to be a really good match for this coaching staff.
Yeah, it looks like he's doing a great job. I've seen a number of things out on Twitter where we're, and some finalists or a number of players coming in. So that's really great. So, kind of continuing on more at a macro level, and again, I'll encourage anybody that hasn't listened to the Dribble Drive to make sure to go and check that out and listen with Austin, where they are covering in depth. I know earlier this year, you guys gave kind of your projected teams, but just for our listeners that maybe haven't heard that episode, right now, understanding it's fluid, who are your top 5 projected Big Ten teams for next year?
Yeah, it is fluid. I think my 4 and 5 are probably going to change several times between now and when I submit the ballot. I think number 1 is going to be unanimous. I think UCLA is the best team in the league, might be the best team in the country. I mean, they return just about everybody from their starting lineup. London Jones is off to USC. But the key for UCLA, not only do they return Lauren Betts and Jaquez and others,
Get her sister too,
but they bring in her sister, Sienna Betts. And I thought one of the biggest pickups in any portal was Gianna Neepkins from Utah. We saw her firsthand. She is a 3-level scorer. She is a terrific basketball player, and I think will fit in so well with UCLA. So not to go on too much of a UCLA tangent, but I think Neepkins, great addition. They're 1. Michigan to me is my 2. I'm going based, my rankings are very much what can I count on? What do I know about these teams? And I know that Michigan is bringing back 3 of the best freshmen from last year, and they are now sophomores. And I know there's the sophomore slump, but these are 3 really good sophomores, and that's a great base. And they add Sofia from Belmont to be their 5. They played last season without a 5, without a true post in their starting lineup. So if Sofia can add anything from the 5 position in that starting lineup, that's going to be a huge boost for Michigan. Maryland, I have it 3. I know that's going to hurt. It's going to take a long time to get used to seeing Yarden in Maryland uniform, but she was a huge pickup. Like we know how good she is, so that was a big pickup for Brenda Fries. Kayleen Schmeichel is back. Sailor Poffenbarger is back. They have they also brought in Okinawa from Duke, who is a great defender. So they really loaded up with those 2 big portal additions. Kayleen Schmeichel could be the player of the year if it's not Lauren Betts in the Big Ten. So I like Maryland at 3. Michigan State, I have at 4 right now. Again, it's what can I count on? And I can count on Grace Van Sluten and Theron Howard coming back as a dynamic 1-2 punch. We have seen Rashonda Jones at Purdue in the Big Ten contribute, so I like that pickup. Jaylen Brown from Arizona State averaged over 18 a game, a huge high-level pickup for them. So I like Michigan State. And the 5 is a really tough one for me. I think it could be anybody between USC, Minnesota, and Washington. I give it to USC because of what Lindsey Gottlieb was able to do last year with this team. But the big question mark is they're not going to have Juju Watkins, so what do they look like? I like the addition of Kara Dunn from Georgia Tech. Kennedy Smith should take a huge step forward as a sophomore. There's such a high ceiling for her. Jazzy Davidson, the number 1 recruit in the 25 class, is going to be an instant impactor for USC. I think the ceiling is lower than last year, but the floor is pretty high for USC. So I gave them the nod at 5. You could talk me into Minnesota because they pretty much bring back everybody. And if Mara Braun stays healthy, she can be damaging. And then Washington brings back their guards, and they add Avery Howell from USC and Grabovskaya from Michigan at the 5 position. So I like that as my top 7. I do think there's a small little gap from there. But this league is going to be so good, and it is going to compete for 12, 13 spots in the tournament again this year. If Indiana finishes 10th in the league, they will be an NCAA tournament team. That's why if you hear me say 12, like I know
don't freak out.
Usually that's a big number and you freak out. Like, how could you finish 12th? But this league is so good, and it's going to be a total toss up from 7 to 14. So you just got to kind of trust the process. But I do think the top 4 in some order are UCLA, Michigan, Maryland, and Michigan State. Indiana gets both Michigan schools at home this year, but they will have to go to the LA schools. They will have to go to Maryland. Then they'll also host Minnesota and Washington. So Again, Assembly Hall is an advantage, and I don't know if they fully took advantage of that enough last year. They did get Ohio State at home, but they didn't get Maryland. They didn't get either LA school. I look for Indiana to try and utilize home court a little bit more this year, because you get the Michigan schools at home, got to try and split those, because if you get one of those, that's a huge win for your resume. If you can get Minnesota or Washington or both, that's big wins. So I think there's going to be a lot of big games in Assembly Hall this year, looking at how many of those top projected teams come to town. Iowa comes to town, which is always a big
one. Yeah.
Oregon's going to come to town. So it's going to be a great year in Assembly Hall for sure.
Austin, kind of going along with that same thought process, though, a couple teams that we're used to seeing besides Indiana in this discussion about the top 4 or 5 that I didn't hear you mention, Ohio State and Iowa. So, yeah. And again, I realize Ohio State had some loss, maybe one of the biggest players in the portal, but we've kind of come to expect Kevin McGuff teams to be right there in the mix. This just kind of tells you how deep the league is.
I think it does, and that's what we've tried to reiterate on the podcast, is like, I might pick Ohio State right now, have them 9th. They could finish top 5 easily. Jelani Cambridge might be the best player in the league. She could truly be that. But the question is, what do they have around her? Chance Gray's got to be more consistent this year, but she's a great 3-point shooter. They bring in Tiana Todd, I believe, from Boston College, and she comes over. But they lose Cody McMahon. That's such a big loss. Taylor Theory is a huge loss. She was such a big deal. So I think that they're a tournament team. They're probably not a hosting team this year, but not a team that you want to play, because Jelani Cambridge is a matchup nightmare. So they're sitting there at 9 for me, and then Iowa sits at 11. I don't know a lot about Iowa right now. And so that's kind of where I am with both, and honestly, Indiana included. Indiana, Iowa, and Ohio State, teams that we normally can count on to be at the top of the league, they all 3 have a lot of question marks right now. Iowa loses Lucy Olson, Addison O'Grady, Sydney Falter, and Aaliyah Guyton. Stolke is back. I'm not as high on her as I feel like the national media almost always is. I think she's a great player. I think she's a really solid player. But I don't know if she can carry a basketball team. So she needs help around her. So going to need big performances from Taylor McCabe, Kylie Feuerbach, some of those freshmen turned sophomores like Hayden and Mulaney. Emily Rodriguez, a player I know Indiana was interested in from UCF. She can score. But, I don't know. They've Addie Deal, their freshman, is going to be a star. Top 25 recruit, going to be somebody who impacts it right away. So again, Indiana, Ohio State, Iowa could all be teams that are way higher than I expect. You have to find like a principle when you're trying to rank these 18 teams. And for me, the 2 principles are, what are you bringing back? What do I know? Like, what things can I rely on your team? And then in tiebreaker situations, for me, it's coaching. And that's why I could see Indiana jumping up my list a little bit more before I end up submitting it, because I do believe in Terry Morin. I think she's one of the best coaches in this league. So those are the 2 things for me, because I do know that's another thing you can rely on is good coaching. And I think Indiana has that with Coach Morin.
And Austin, I want to kind of follow up that a little bit. I think the one thing, and this gives you an opportunity to talk about Z a little bit, that probably the one thing that I think a lot of fans were disappointed in last year was post play. And I know Caroline Strickland did a pretty decent job, but I think we all thought Lily was going to be the second, it was never going to, I think too many people thought she was going to be Mackenzie Holmes, the second coming of Mackenzie Holmes, but and to a certain degree, I felt bad for Lily that it didn't happen, but we just didn't get consistent post play. And from what you know of Z, is that going to be, can we turn that around a little bit this year?
It's going to be different, but it's going to be better. I think it's always hard, and I'm with you for Lily. It's hard to be the person who follows the star.
Right.
It's hard to be the person that follows the Hall of Famer in a different sense, obviously. But like Mackenzie Holmes is an all-time great, might be the greatest player in this program's history. So to follow that and to have played with her for 2 years and to have seen it and she's on staff, and so she's still around. And I think there was a lot of pressure on Lily last year. Yeah. I expect her to have a great year at Kansas because I think she's going to be freed up a little bit, and I hope she plays great. But for Z, I think last year the goal for me going into the season was, can Lily and Caroline combine for max stats? And too often they would combine for 4 rebounds, or too often they would combine for 11 points and 3 boards and 8 fouls. Like that was the issue for them last year. They couldn't stay out of foul trouble. This was the, I believe, second worst rebounding team in the Big Ten. Them and Purdue kind of alternated in that final 2 spots. Z's going to be a better rebounder, somebody who is very athletic. I think so. From what I've heard from a source within the team, she's one of the more athletic people this program has had at that 5 position. It's going to be a different look. It's going to be somebody who has that ability to beat somebody inside off the dribble. Mac was so good with footwork, and so she beat you almost with an old man game, kind of like, I'm going to beat you with the fundamentals. I think Z's going to beat people because she's just bigger, faster, stronger than some of these posts in the Big Ten. So I think that the question with Z, and there's several questions, because she didn't play much last year. That's because she was backing up Lauren Betts, and nobody was going to play over Lauren Betts. But can she withstand a full season of Big Ten basketball where you're the starting 5 and you've got to play 30 to 35 minutes a game? And then B, where does Indiana go behind her is the other question. Is that Faith Wiseman? Is she ready to be a backup 5 in this league? She obviously had a moment against Oregon, but again, that's a moment. You got to be consistent and be somebody who, again, in her role as the backup 5, you've kind of got to be what Lily was for 2 years, which is come in and just be steady. And that's what she did against Oregon, which was what was so impressive. She came in what could have been a frantic situation, and you know what? Didn't make any mistakes.
No, she handled that so well.
That's the key, is if you're going to come in, don't make dumb mistakes. And she did a great job of that in that Oregon game. So we'll see how she handles that. But I think I'm excited about Z. People forget she was a top pretty much 25 recruit in the nation. Indiana had their eyes on her, missed out with her going to UCLA. The Final 4 was UCLA, Indiana, Michigan, and Tennessee. And again, that's why in today's day and age, you don't give up on a recruit that you lose out on. You stay with it. You never know when they might come back around. They might enter the portal, and now you've got them. So I think that she's going to be huge for them. And it's a different type of 5 than Indiana has had. You think about some of the 5s recently, Mackenzie Holmes, Caroline Strickland. Before that, like a Kim Royster. They're great. They were fundamentally sound players. But I think Z is just a different type of 5 that Indiana is going to be able to do a little bit more with. And I also trust this coaching staff, because last year Lily was the starter at the 5, and it wasn't working. And it didn't totally work initially with Strickland either. And they figured out how to change the offense, putting defenders in more pick and rolls with Garzone, with Chesky, and getting the bigs out to the perimeter, stretching the floor a little bit more. So there might be an initial game plan they try with Zania, and there might be something they have to pivot to. But I think she's a really, really promising talent at that 5 position that Indiana has not had.
Yeah. So Austin, you're kind of leading me into a question I had for you as well. So, Jeff and I have been talking for years, not just with the turnover in the roster this year, on how we would really like to see the team become a little bit more athletic. And then Coach Morin, in one of her last press conferences of last year, mentioned something similar about being able to be more athletic in the size. And at least from what, Jeff and I can see, it feels like we've done that a little bit. And you've touched on that with Big Z coming in. She definitely is, from what we can tell, way more athletic at the 5, just as you mentioned. But I think there's other players that look more athletic than maybe we have seen in the past. Yep. So with that and the new roster roster coming in and the youth that we have, we just really don't have a lot of upperclassmen on the roster this coming year. Do you expect we'll see a different kind of play, both offensively or defensively, from Coach Morin and her staff next year?
Yeah, I don't think that they'll be at the levels of 23-24 seasons where they were averaging 85 points a game. But I do think this team's going to be able to run. And I do think that that's always an identity of Terry Morin, is she wants to get out and run. But where that athleticism is going to come into play, I think, is defensively. You see it. Yeah. There's no game I circle more, no opponent I circle more in terms of the athleticism than whenever Indiana has played Illinois over the last couple of years.
Yes.
Those guards have exposed Indiana's athleticism in those top three positions. Makaira Cook, Genesis Bryant, even last year.
And now Aaliyah Guyton coming in too.
And Aaliyah Guyton coming in now. They've got more. They're reloading again at that point guard position. But those games, if you look back, obviously this past year, Genesis Bryant was great, but it felt like either her or Cook scored 25 to 30 points on Indiana in every meeting. And if you watch it, it's because of just simply sometimes them being more athletic than whoever's guarding them. And so I'm hopeful that you bring in some players like Stotine, Kiaku. You bring back from injury somebody like a Beaumont, who I think is going to be more athletic once she's fully healthy and ready to go. Caffey, from what we've heard about her defensive prowess, could be one of those as well. So that is definitely something that Indiana, and they know that. Terry talked about it, like you said, in that presser down in Columbia. She said they've got to get more athletic because Indiana had good defenders, but they weren't the quickest defenders. And then you had somebody like a Sydney Parrish, who we know how great she was for this program, but nobody was going to confuse her for a sprinter on the track. Like she wasn't the quickest player. So to get some more speed, some more athleticism on the wing is exactly what this team had to do. I think they went out and sought it in the portal. Now we'll find out if they actually landed it when things start to get going. But yeah, if you want to go look back at it, those Illinois games are a great example of a team exposing Indiana's weakness at that guard position. Trying to think of other teams that may have done it, but they just have felt like a thorn in Indiana's side. Mm-hmm. Michigan did it a little bit last year too, when they came back and beat Indiana in the Chrysler Center. So just finding a way to be a little bit more dynamic defensively. I'm not too worried about the offensive side for this team. I think they've brought in enough playmakers, but can they be better on the ball defensively? That's a Terry Morin staple. When she has a good team, they are a pain in the butt to play against on that side of the floor. The last year or two, they just haven't been that way. And for as good as Garzone has been offensively, she was that liability defensively and just not being the quickest on-ball defender. So if you upgraded those positions with Parrish and Garzone and you fill that in with two a little bit quicker defenders at the 3 and the 4, I think that could be a big plus for this team.
And Austin, you've kind of hit on it a little bit. Anybody who listens to this podcast knows I'm a huge Lene Beaumont fan. And I'm not saying that Lene was going to win an extra 5 games if Lene's healthy last year, but I think she could have made the difference in some of those games, like at Minnesota or Oregon, where the offense went a little dry. And you kind of hit on a little bit, but just if Lene is healthy, and we had her on last month, had a great discussion with her. She seems to indicate that she's going to be cleared by the time they get to practice. Yeah. What kind of impact do you think Lene Beaumont can have, who's been around the system now, that even though she's a junior and only going to be her second year of eligibility, she's a vet now. She's got like maybe Shea is the only person who's got more playing time than Lene does in the system. So what do you think of Lene and where she kind of fits in for this coming team?
Well, I'm with you. I'm a huge Lene fan. I'll carry the Lene Beaumont pom-poms with you. Right when she got here, you could tell she was about the right things. She was ready to go from the get-go. And the comparisons that I heard from people watching her that first year was she's Grace Berger. And that's high praise for somebody right away. And so I think that's why last year, that nagging knee injury, she wasn't right because she needs that explosion. She was kind of, it was a little bit like Grace playing through the back end of her senior year after she had returned from that knee injury.
Yeah.
She was still good, but couldn't quite get that explosion. Lene needs that. And so, yeah, I've heard the same thing with you, Jeff. I believe she's going to be ready to go for fall practices. I was doing the watching highlight videos with a microscope. Like, is Lene back there? And I think she was in that last video.
Yep.
She was in a highlight making a layup. So
yeah,
like, okay,
she told
great.
us she was practicing again. So
yeah, so it's good to see her out there. She's also just like, she's a cheerleader for this program. It would have been so easy for her to follow everyone else and go into the portal and say, you know what, I'm going to get healthy with a new start somewhere. And instead, what have we seen? Almost every recruiting picture, every recruiting visit, she's in it. She's out there carrying the flag for this university, for this program. And I think that's awesome. I remember her first year, it was September, and she was, and I always cover Hoosiers Outrun Cancer. I always MC that event outside of Assembly Hall. And she and Jules were both there playing cornhole with people, like talking to people. And I was like, this is really cool. They haven't even played a second as a Hoosier yet. And they are totally like into the community, into everything that this is about. And so I'm a huge Lene Beaumont fan. I do think she would have been a difference maker last year. Does she turn this team, like you said, Jeff, from a 20-win team to a 25? Maybe not, but maybe 22, 23. Yeah. And
get us
and
off
again,
that seed line too. Get us out of the South Carolina bracket. Yeah.
Yeah. Terry Morin has talked about how they went into last season with a game plan. And then Lene gets hurt. And Lexi gets hurt. And now their game plan with two of probably the main 7 or 8 players in their rotation has to be totally redone. And I'm not like, look, you still shouldn't lose at home to Harvard. You shouldn't lose to Butler. But it was a kind of, whoa, okay, we got to figure out who we are, because who I thought we were included these two. And right now it doesn't. And obviously it never included Lene as the season went on. But she would have been a big part. Terry Morin has talked glowingly about her. I felt like every coach's show she mentioned, like, we can't wait till we get Bo on the floor. So I think they truly believe she's special. I think at her best, she's an all Big Ten player. And I'm not even sure she'll start. I don't know what the rotation will be, what the starting lineup will be, if she'll be a starter or not, if she's ready to play heavy minutes yet or not. The key for her is, has she improved defensively? Because I think her freshman year, if she could have defended, she might have played more. She was not a great defender coming out of high school, and that freshman year, she really struggled to defend. But we saw in that freshman year the glimpses of her lack of fear at attacking the basket. She's going to take it at you. She's got moves. She's got a lot in the bag, as I think the kids would say. But I can't wait to see her healthy. I think she's going to be a great pair with some of these guards like a Chesky. And again, the more dynamic guards you have out there, the more shooters you have, it just spreads the floor. And it's why, like, a Grace Berger was so effective, because she was surrounded by Parrish and Scalia and people who could hit 3-pointers. And the reason why I go back on a men's example, like a Romeo Langford didn't work, is because he wasn't surrounded by 3-point shooters that could stretch the floor. So everybody was able to pack it in. So Indiana's got to be able to shoot the 3 so that there's driving lanes and a mid-range opportunity for somebody like Lene to do what she does best.
Yeah,
Kathy?
absolutely.
Okay.
Well, guys, we've been here for almost 50 minutes or not, believe it or not. That's gone by pretty quick, and we probably could stay for another 15 minutes, just the three of us yapping on about basketball, Indiana basketball. But I think we'll go ahead and wrap it up. So, Jeff, I'll kick it over to you for your final thoughts, and then let Austin go, and I'll say a last couple words to take us out of here.
Austin, I'll just ask you one more quick question, kind of almost a rapid fire answer from you. Would you be interested in seeing the women go to a 20-game Big Ten schedule?
Yes.
And that's my final thought.
Yeah, I think it would be good. I think there's something about the standings that are tough to figure out when you only play teams one time. Now, 20 games doesn't alleviate all of that, but I do think it would be good. I love Big Ten games, so the more we get, I think the better. But it would be tough because I don't know how you do it, because you have to end a week early, because you have to play your Big Ten tournament a week before the men. You can't play it the same week in a different location. So I don't think logistically it would work, but I would be all for it. I think playing more teams twice helps the data and helps collect who truly is best, because you could lose to somebody like Indiana lost to Oregon on the road and ended up losing to a tiebreaker to them in the standings. But I knew that Indiana was a better team than Oregon. But they had to go out to Oregon on a plane ride out there with the jet lag and just didn't play great. Now, jet lag, we cannot complain about that. Obviously, the West Coast teams had that much worse. But I do think it makes a difference when you only play a team on the road or you only play a team at home. So even 20 would give you 2 more teams that you've got to play twice, which I think would be beneficial. But logistically, I just don't know if they'll ever get there.
Yeah, we've kind of had the same thoughts when we've been bantering around. It'd be great to be able to do that. I just don't know how you pull it off. So, well, Austin, thank you so much again for being on here. And yeah, maybe we'll see if we can fit with schedules in coming up after the fall practices start, and see if you can give us a little insight, knowledge for everyone out there into what you are seeing on the floor. Because I know, speaking for myself, I'm very excited about the season. I'm excited to see the newness on the floor. And I love what you said earlier as well about not having expectations, because I've had a couple of people, like at work, I know I live in Iowa, but there are still people out here asking me about Indiana women's basketball, and I just don't know what to tell them in terms of expectation. I said, honestly, I don't really have a whole lot. I'm just going into the season and excited to see the new product. And I really think we're going to see something different from the coaching staff because of the different type of players it seems we have on there too. So everything you said are things that Jeff and I have been saying as well, and are excited to see it. So thanks again for having the time with us here tonight. And Jeff, I think that'll kick us out into a little Bob Thompson music. Okay, so up next for Jeff and I, we will start doing podcasts a little more regularly again. We've taken our own little summer break here as well. So right now we plan on returning on August 26th, which will be in 2 weeks. We'll start taking a look at some of the Big Ten teams. We'll start with UCLA, as Austin alluded to in his list, that they're number one, most likely unanimous. It's the same way for Jeff and I. So Jeff and I are only going to concentrate on probably maybe 5 other Big Ten teams, as well as Indiana. Again, highly encourage you, if you don't already, to listen to Dribble Drive. Austin and his partner do a fantastic job over there, going very much in depth. They have great guest interviews on for all of theirs, so a different take than what Jeff and I have. So definitely like to say we're complimentary of each other. At least I hope so. So that's what we're going to start here on August 26th. And if you want to see us do the show live and be part of our live chat, make sure you do subscribe to our YouTube channel. It's youtube.com/@BackHomeNetwork. And you won't find just us, but about 500 million podcasts now, I think, are out there, something like that. It's quite a few. So you can also be part of our private community. You can find out more about that at assemblycall.substack.com. Special thanks to John Ringer of Riggs Design for designing our logos. A big thanks to Bob Thompson for the music that you just heard Jeff playing for us. But most of all, thank you all for listening. We'll be back with you to talk IU hoops soon. But until then, keep your elbow in, your eyes on the rim, and let's go Hoosiers.
All right, you can tell it's been a long time since I produced, because this is all different from the last time I did this. I couldn't find the music. I finally found it while Austin was, right before, while you were doing the hoop banner moment stuff. I was like, where'd it go? Yeah, it's like, oh. So anyway, Austin, thanks for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, guys, no problem. I'm always happy to. It's been. I feel like I'm podcasting I only have one episode a week, but it still feels like I'm doing it every day. So it's becoming normal, and it's fun to talk about IU because
you're
doing a lot of not talking about IU.
Right.
But we've been thrilled with the coaches we've been able to get on. Coaches have been much more receptive to it than I went into it expecting. So I think we're on pace to get 8 or 9 coaches on.
Nice.
So, I mean,
that's great.
Our goal was 5 or 6. So if we're going to get half the league, it's a great start. So yeah, we appreciate the shout out, and hopefully we can balance each other's shows out and be very complimentary to each other.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah.
All right, Austin. Thanks again.
Yeah,
thanks
guys.
everyone that's out there listening. Have a wonderful
Austin, I do have one
Tuesday
quick
night.
question for you off the air.
Yeah.
Hey, we'll see everybody.
Good night.